morning, everyone. First Mishnah and Second Brachot discusses also the latest time to say the Kriyat Shema. The Gemara says there's a machloket. Rabbi Lazar says until Sof HaShmura Shona, till the end of the first watch. Then you have the Chachamim who say till Chatzot, till midnight. You have Rabbi Gamliel says you have until dawn. You have until the next day, basically, to say the nighttime Kriyat Shema. The halacha, the Gemara comes out in conclusion. Halacha is like Rabbi Gamliel, that you have all the way until the next day to say the nighttime Shema. However, the Gemara says that you should take into consideration the halacha of the Chachamim. The Chachamim agree, essentially, you have till the whole night to say Kriyat Shema. This is the Torah says, when you lie down, you get up. As long as there's still people lying down, so you can still say the nighttime Shema. But Chachamim say until midnight you should say the Kriyat Shema. Why? Because maybe a person is going to say, oh, I have time, I'm going to lay down, I'll wake up, I'll say Shema later, and he'll miss the Shema completely. So better not to do it later than midnight. And therefore the Rishonim argue, what is really the halacha? The Rashba says the person can say all the way till Alot Shachar, until dawn. The Rambam says no, you have to, in respect for the Chachamim, you have to follow the opinion of the Chachamim and do it till midnight. And if you pass midnight, you can still say till dawn, till Alot Shachar. But the Talmidei Rabbi Yonah says that even Rabbi Gamliel agrees, lechatchila, you have to say it by midnight. You have to say it by Tzetok Kochavim, you should say it as early as possible. Only b'diavad, the Chachamim and Rabbi Gamliel argue if you can say it till midnight or not, or until the morning. So Shulchan Aruch follows like this opinion, and Resh Lamed Hey writes, everybody should say Kriyat Shema right away by Tzetok Kochavim. If a person was not able to, he forgot, he got carried away with something else, he should try as much as he can to do it by midnight. Only if it happened against his will that he wasn't able to, then he has technically until the morning. So if a person went to sleep, he forgot to pray Arvit, he forgot to say Kriyat Shema of the evening, and he wakes up before dawn, he could still say the Shema and he could still pray Arvit, but preferably he should not go to sleep before doing this mitzvot, thinking that he has time in the morning. He should do it always before, as soon as possible, but definitely try before Hatzot, before midnight. The Gemara Masechet Brachot, the Chaitam Mutbet, discusses, the Rishon Bar Yochai says, what if a person slept the whole night and he woke up after dawn? He woke up after dawn before Netz Hama. He says you can have a person that is going to say Shema twice, one time before Netz, one time after Netz, and it will be considered that he said Shema for the nighttime and Shema for the morning time. He fulfilled both Kriyat Shemas right after one after the other in a small amount of time, and it's considered he did the mitzvah. And Shulchan Aruch says like this in Siman Resh Lamed Hey, Seif Dalet. But this, Shulchan Aruch says, is only for someone who is anus. This is somebody who, against his control, sometimes people go to parties and they get drunk, or maybe they got sick, he didn't feel well, he was laying down in the beginning of the evening, he didn't feel well, he had a stomach ache, and he fell asleep. And he woke up, 5 o'clock in the morning, he says, it's already time for Netz, I have to go pray Netz. But I didn't say Shema the night before. So he says, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says Shulchan Aruch in this case, you could say the nighttime Shema before the Netz, and you say the morning Shema right after the Netz, even though it's going to be close to each other. Why? Because this is going to be considered a extenuating circumstance. It was against his will, he was an anus, and he'll be able to use his leniency. But obviously, a person should not rely on this. Obviously, a person should always say the Shema as early as possible after Tzetok Kochavim. There was a wonderful story with the Netziv of Naftali Tzvi Yehuda Berlin, who was one of the Rosh Yeshivas of the Yeshivat Volozhin, that the Rav Chaim Volozhin made. And there was a rabbi, he was the rabbi there, and one of the Balabatim came to him and he said, Rabbi, I have a big problem. My wife always makes me, problems in the house. Everything I say, she does the complete opposite. I put the AC on, I put the thermostat, and I make sure the oven is in this temperature, and she changes it always. I put the boxes in this room, she always puts it somewhere else. Everything I say, she does the opposite. I have no shalom bayit with her. How am I going to have shalom bayit? So he said to him, what do you do all day? He says, I'm a very, very busy man. I'm a businessman. I have so many calculations and accountings to make, and I have barely any time for myself. He says to him, do you learn any Torah? He says, I don't learn any Torah. I have to run straight in the morning to work, and I come home very late at night. I barely have time for myself, my kids, my wife, and I go to sleep. He says you have to make sure you spend 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening learning Torah, and you have to make sure you do it at home. Do it at home in front of your wife. Your wife should see you. He says, what is this going to help? He says, listen, you came for advice, take the advice. He went home and he did this. He made sure to learn in the house, open up a sefer. Even though it was very simple things, but that's what he could handle, and it was in front of his wife. His wife saw how he learned Torah, and whenever he said something, he used to teach her halachot, he used to teach her a story, he used to teach her midrash, and then he would tell her, I want the boxes here, I want the oven this temperature. She would listen to him. Why? The rabbi explained to him afterwards, because she saw you learn Torah, she started giving value to your words. She started realizing, my husband learns Torah, he knows something, he's wise. Before, she used to mizalzel in you. Now she sees you have the kavod of the Torah, so now she listens to you. Therefore, if anybody on this Tu B'Av, if he wants to have Shalom Bayit, he has to make sure that he also learns in his house, and his family should see him also learning in his house. Baruch Nayolam.